What's going on, everybody? We're back with our team review. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns. We're going alphabetical order. We're going over every team, going over the depth chart and what it means for fantasy football. Um, Dad, the Cleveland Browns overall outlook on the Browns this year with Deshaun Watson getting a full offseason as the head quarterback of the Browns.
Yeah, hopefully he turns out he shows up to be the Deshaun Watson that we seen his last year in Houston. I know it seems like an eternity and stuff like that, and but definitely all the pieces and parts are in place for Cleveland. You know, they got a coaching staff that's been there, I think, at least 4 years. You know, you got a stud running back of Nick Chubb. You know, you got a pretty good receiving core and things like that. So their defense is supposed to be really good. You got one of the best edge rushers. So who are all eyeballs on? Deshaun Watson. It's like, come on, dude, you got to be playing football. You know, so
Yep. And he didn't look good coming in last year. So let me share the depth chart with you guys, and we'll get into the quarterbacks. But yeah, Deshaun Watson, obviously the QB1 here, came back. What was it, week 12? I think he played in 5 games last year, 6 games last year, and did not look good. That's just the honest truth. But the guy, it was his first game he had played since the end of the 2020 season. So he missed all of 2021. Essentially, it was like over a year and a half, right? Over a year and a half of not playing football, not being there. And so you expect the rust. So played in 6 games, didn't look good at all. Although I'd say the last 2 weeks were maybe his a little encouraging. He threw 5 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. Threw 230 yards the last game of the year. So slightly encouraging there. But this year, we hope that he's kind of, like you said, back to that his 2020 form where, with Houston, and I'm just looking it up now, but he was, give me a second here, he was the quarterback 5 in 2020. Quarterback 5 overall. So maybe people forget that. He was quarterback 5 in 2019 and 2020. And quarterback 4 in 2018. So basically 3 straight years where he was a top 5 quarterback in fantasy. That's really good. Right now he is going as the QB9. He's going behind, the top 3. We always talk about Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, Jackson, Herbert, Fields, Lawrence, Deshaun Watson. And he's going, Dad, in basically at the end of round 5, beginning of round 6. What do you feel about that, getting Deshaun Watson in the 6th round to be your QB1?
I think pretty good. In Houston, just to go back to the Houston, he was doing a lot of running then, and he was throwing 4,500 yards and stuff like that. There really wasn't a lot of great offensive weapons on the team, but he's probably not going to do as much running. Obviously, the draft position, yeah, I'm pretty good with the draft position. I think that's about appropriate, and if we get 80% of what Deshaun Watson used to be, that'll probably be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm in on that as the QB9. I would take him, I think, over Trevor Lawrence, just because of the upside. You mentioned the rushing, which is part of the reason why he was consistently in the top 5. It wasn't Lamar Jackson, level. It wasn't Justin Fields level. It wasn't even like a Josh Allen level of rushing. It was a solid floor. It was like between like a Mahomes and a Josh Allen. He was giving you about 500, between 400 to 500 yards rushing a game, or not a game, but a season, right? So 450 yards, we'll say, in a 16-game season, he's giving you about almost 30 yards rushing a game, giving you about 2.5 points a game added to his total. Gifted passer, like you said, he led the league in passing yards in 2020 with 4,800 yards and 33 touchdowns. So he can be a QB1 with his arm, even if the rushing kind of goes away. But I will say this. He ran for 175 yards in 6 games last year, and that's 29 yards a game, which is bang on his average that he was doing in Houston his last 3 years in Houston from 2018 to 2020.
Interesting stat, yeah.
So he's basically doing exactly the same, rushing for about 30 yards even last year with the Browns. So I still think you'll get that rushing floor of 400 or 500 yards. It's not like he's old. He'll be 28 when the season starts. So still a lot of good years left in him. And I can see him, giving you a nice little 2-point floor of rushing per game. So, and even if that goes away, I think he's talented enough with his arm to be a top quarterback as a passer. And he probably has the best supporting cast that he's ever had around him, I'd say. And the last thing I'll say about Watson is there's no way in hell that the Browns gave him the money that they gave him to not throw the ball with him. I know they've been more of a running team than a passing team, pretty balanced team, I would say. There's no way in hell you give a guy $200 million and then you don't pass the ball. You're not top 10 in passing this year. That's my opinion. So, anything else on Watson, Dad? Are you?
Nope. Just
you said you're in on him.
You better stay out of the massage parlors.
Yeah. Yep. Going on to the running backs, we have no more Kareem Hunt, no more Dearness Johnson. We have Nick Chubb. We have Nicholas Chubb, who I am super, super excited about, more than I ever have been. He's currently going as the RB6, so he's going behind McCaffrey, Eckler, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley. Those are the top 5, and then it's Chubb at 6, ahead of Pollard, ahead of Derrick Henry, ahead of Josh Jacobs. You have to take him. It looks like in the second round. Do you think that's where Chubb should be going?
Yeah,
I do. Him as RB6.
I definitely do. I've always liked this guy, even when he was playing at Georgia, and I know he had a big knee injury in Georgia, but yeah, he's. Geez, last year he had 302 carries. That was he only had 1 year that he even came close to. One other year came close to that. So, Cleveland knows, obviously, hey, this is our man. He had 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns. Really good numbers. Yeah, Nick Chubb, I wouldn't have a problem taking him.
Yep. And again, we're looking at it from a half PPR point of view, so it's even more intriguing because he's not, going to do a whole lot probably in the passing game. He's since 2019, so 4 straight years, he's been a top 12 running back. He's been closer most of those years as like a top 7 guy. Last year he was top 5, averaged almost 16 points a game. Very, very talented runner. That's obvious. And I think I made a video about Nick Chubb, and I was basically looking at running backs that averaged or had more than 65% snap share. They were on the field 65% of the time or more for the whole season. And basically every one of those running backs over the last 5 years, there's only been like 3 or 4 running backs who weren't on a pace to catch 40 passes. So basically what I'm trying to say is I think there's a good chance that Chubb plays 65% of the snaps. And if that's the case, I think Chubb catches at least 40 catches because that's just usually the math there. Even if they're not targeting him, just think of the dump offs, right? Just think of, no one's open downfield. You dump it off to the running back. You have to get 2 of those a game. That's kind of all we're saying. Get 1 or 2 of those a game, plus another catch here and there, and you're at 40. So if we can get the Nick Chubb, who can catch 40 passes and still rush for what he's done, 1,500 yards potential, I think we're really excited about that. And on top of it, like, we're expecting this offense to be better, right? Aren't we expecting the whole Browns offense to be good? Like, would you put money on, would you be comfortable putting money on them being like a top 10 offense? Like, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I would feel okay putting a bet like that. And if that's the case, Nick Chubb could have double-digit touchdowns easily, A lot of things pointing in his direction, in my opinion, trending up. I think it's going to be the best year of his career. He's 27 years old, so there's no really concern about the age. He hasn't had a huge workload, not like a Derrick Henry workload. So I just hope he gets 65% of the snaps. And I was looking at it, and basically when they kind of went away from Kareem Hunt, at the end of the year, here's Nick Chubb's snap percentages: 63%, 70%, 53%, 56, 75. So he was, I think if you average that out, he averaged about 63% snap percentage. So they've shown that they could go that way. They could go in that direction. Yeah. Last thing I'll say before I shut up here is with Deshaun Watson playing, Chubb had in those 6 games, he had 14 targets, 10 catches. So, nothing spectacular, but a little bit better than kind of what he was on pace for before that. So, Dad, anything else you want to say about Nick Chubb?
No, you obviously done a lot of research. I like the guy. To me, reminds me of an old, I'm an old man, so I believe in football should be played a certain way, and to me, running back Nick Chubb plays that brand of football that I like. It's not, and obviously the Browns know what they got, and they're gonna, and hopefully, he has a good run this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. Jerome Ford is a name to know because I really like Jerome Ford. I drafted him in a dynasty rookie draft last year. Unfortunately, I had to drop him just due to roster things. But his profile was interesting from college. He was recruited to go to Alabama, and he went to Alabama for I think 2 or 3 years, and he was behind all these Alabama running backs that have been coming out over the last couple of years. He was behind all those guys. And so he decided to go to Cincinnati, and he exploded his last year at Cincinnati. 1,300 rushing yards, caught 20 passes, 19 touchdowns. So he's an interesting prospect. He was drafted in the 5th round, 5'11", 215, so good size. I like Jerome Ford, and I think we definitely need to keep an eye on him because we mentioned we hope Chubb gets that 65-70% snap percentage. But the history of the Browns is that they're not going to do that. Even when like Kareem Hunt missed games over the last couple of years, they still would bring in Dearness Johnson. So the history of the Browns under Stefanski is that they like to go with the 2 running backs. And if that's the case, then Jerome Ford has value, right? Even more value, like a flex with benefits is what they call them. Guys that you can maybe flex, and then if the main guy goes down, you have maybe a smash play with Jerome Ford. So, I think Jerome Ford deserves to be on rosters, and we'll see. We'll see what he does this year. Anything on Jerome Ford, Ed?
No, he didn't do much last year. So as you kind of outlined, but they say biggest for rookies, the biggest improvement is from year 1 to year 2, and this looks like Jerome Ford's going to get a chance behind Nick Chubb. So we'll see how it all falls out.
Indeed. We'll get to the wide receivers as we talked about. Deshaun Watson, maybe the best supporting cast he's ever had. Part of that includes Nick Chubb. and a lot of it has to do with these receivers that he's throwing to. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones are the three receivers, in my opinion. Those are the guys that are going to be on the field the most. Dad, I'm going to let you start here. I'm going to give you Amari Cooper is going. He is going at the beginning of the 4th round. Elijah Moore is going, looks like at the beginning of the 8th round. And then Peoples-Jones is pretty deep, 15th round or so. Of those three guys, let's say between Cooper and Elijah Moore, given where you can draft them, who are you leaning towards if you want a piece of this roster?
Yeah, I think Amari Cooper. I think, after years of bashing him or anything else, because he was a Raider and a Cowboy, and I'm not fans of those teams, but the guy had a pretty decent year last year. So he is definitely Cleveland's wide receiver 1. So Elijah Moore, I don't. I know they traded pretty early in the offseason, got him, so they didn't really. The Browns really didn't screw around, but this guy, he hasn't had great production or anything like that. So, but he probably should fit in as wide receiver 2. There's some other guys there on the Browns that have been there a while. They're younger. I know we'll get to them and stuff.
Yeah. One thing, Amari Cooper, I definitely think he's going to do very similar to what he's done essentially his whole career. He's an 1,100-yard receiver, and he's going to catch 6 to 8 touchdown passes, maybe more if Watson has a big year. That's just kind of who Amari Cooper is. 80 to 90 catches, like that's literally who he is. He's never had 1,200 yards in his career. He's never had double-digit touchdowns in his career. The most catches in his career is 92. So it's just the type of receiver he is, and that's a solid receiver. Like, I'm not trying to downplay that at all, because you look at it last year in half PPR, Amari Cooper was wide receiver 9. He averaged over 12 points a game, so he was a solid receiver for sure. So. And I think he'll do similar to that. Elijah Moore. I just have this feeling that he's going to do really well this year. Like, he's going to be a value pick this year. I just have this weird feeling. And the way I look at Elijah Moore is when he was a rookie in 2021, he got off to a slow start, like most rookies do, right? Get off to a slow start.
He was with the Jets.
Yeah, he was with the Jets, but he got off to a slow start. He didn't do much his first 5 or 6 weeks, I'd say. And then from week 8 to 13, which is, about halfway through the season when rookie wide receivers start to turn it on, Elijah Moore was the wide receiver 12 over that stretch from week 8 to 13. Very small sample size, 6 games. He averaged over 16 points a game, though, in that 6-week stretch. And then he got hurt and missed the rest of the year. So we didn't get to see you'd like to see a half a season of him doing that. We didn't see it. Everyone was excited about Elijah Moore going into 2022. And then it was just a bunch of things went wrong. Zach Wilson was the quarterback. Mike White was the quarterback. Joe Flacco was the quarterback. There was obviously some issues with the coach and him being upset, not happy in New York, essentially, right? And so he goes to Cleveland now, and we're talking about Deshaun Watson, potentially, a guy that's led the league in passing before and has been a top 5 quarterback for 3 straight years. Why can't Elijah Moore be a stud receiver, especially at his value? Like what's really changed from when he had that 6-week stretch? He got hurt. Obviously, he wasn't happy in New York. Got out of there, and it was just kind of a shit show, anyways. Like, what has really changed, I guess, for him to not take a shot on him at the 100th overall pick, right? Like we're not talking about a top 6 pick. We're talking about a round 9 guy, So I think he's intriguing, and I think he could really bring back a lot of value to people who draft him where he's at. I know you're a little more hesitant on him, Dad. Is that because you like the next guy, Donovan Peoples-Jones? A little bit more?
No, I mean, I like Donovan Peoples-Jones for what he is, and he's a wide receiver 3. So last year he was, he was probably acting like Cleveland's wide receiver 2. But going back to Elijah Moore, so yeah, I wouldn't be happy in New York. You're not winning games. The quarterback stinks. But now you're out of town, so here's a reset on your career. So it's time for you to show up. So he's got all the tools and stuff like that. Let's see if he can put it together and see what happens in Cleveland. And he should get a lot of opportunity with Amari Cooper on the other side, and got a decent quarterback. And
we talked about it with Cooper. Like Amari Cooper is not this super alpha wide receiver hog. Like he's not a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or Stephon Diggs who's going to get 100 and who's guaranteed to get like 160 targets. Right? Last year he had 130 targets, but he was kind of all they had until Peoples-Jones started to come on. I mean, at the wide receiver position, it was kind of all they had until Peoples-Jones started to come on, which he did. Peoples-Jones did start to come on, from weeks 7 to 18. Like Peoples-Jones was a viable flex option. He was averaging like 10 points a game. But before that, Amari Cooper, like 104 targets in Dallas. 19 targets in Dallas. Even going back to Oakland, like he seems like best case scenario, he gets 130 targets. Yeah, he gets 130 targets. So there's a lot of targets on the field there. If you expect this team to pass the ball, top 10, So Amari Cooper's not this huge target hog. So yeah, Elijah Moore, I can see getting a lot of targets with Amari Cooper still doing well. So I like Peoples-Jones. I think like you said, he's better suited as a wide receiver 3, in my opinion. And beyond that, not much to talk about. Cedric Tillman is an intriguing rookie, but I don't expect him to do much this year. David Bell was a rookie. People were a little bit high on last year, and I think that's kind of quieted a bit. So if you want, Dad, we'll get into the tight ends.
Yeah, let's there is a rookie just for who is it? The
Cedric Tillman?
Yeah. Tennessee wide receiver. I know the other. Who was the other Tennessee wide receiver that got all the
Jalen Hyatt?
Yeah, but all he did is run fast and threw people. Cedric Tillman actually looked like a wide receiver running routes and stuff like that. So, and I see he's number 2 on a depth chart right here. So we'll see. For dynasty purposes, something to look at.
Yep, I agree with that. I agree. I think he's an intriguing prospect, especially because, you got Amari Cooper, who is, 29 years old now, so he's not young. And I'm pretty sure his contract is kind of coming to a point where you can get out of it and it starts getting, ridiculous. So someone to keep an eye on. And if Elijah Moore doesn't hit, if Elijah Moore is just not good. Cedric Tillman, someone to keep an eye on for Dynasty. The tight ends, we have David Njoku. David Njoku, they gave him a bunch of money before last year. People were a little bit shocked. But he did provide them with his best year yet. He played in 14 games. He caught 58 passes for 628 yards and 4 touchdowns. So solid numbers. If he plays a full season, you're looking at closer to 800 yards and 70 catches, which is, again, maybe 5 touchdowns, which is solid for a tight end. Dad, let me just tell you where he's going at the tight end spot, and tell me if you're in on him. He's tight end 10, and you can get him. It looks like in the ninth, 10th round. Are you okay with waiting on tight end and grabbing Njoku as your main guy?
Yeah, as we kind of go through some of these teams and we look at stats and we look at tight end stats, we have a lot of tight ends who are around that 50 catch mark and 4 touchdowns. So here we have 58 catches, so 80 targets. So he's in that category. I mean, there's a number of tight ends that we see. That seems to be, unless you're Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or George,
Kittle.
the guy from San Francisco.
Yeah, George Kittle.
Yeah, Kittle. I was going to say Pickett. That ain't it. But anyway, so 9-10 rounds. Yeah,
more like 10, 11.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think I could do that if I need a tight end on my team.
Yep. I agree. Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
No, at least he's involved in the passing game. They're not great yardage or anything like that. I mean, I don't know what is 58 catches and 628 yards. I mean, what does that get you fantasy point wise?
Well, last year, if you give me a second, I'll.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus, but
no, he was tight end 13 last year. But average wise, he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, tight end 9. So he averaged over 8 points a game, 8.1 in half PPR. So
okay,
yeah, he's in that group of guys that we're talking about. The Evan Ingrams. Evan Ingram, everyone loves Evan Ingram, and I'm looking at it here. Evan Ingram's going 10. Let's see here, 10, 17 picks, so a round and a half ahead of him. No, a round and a half ahead of him, and Evan Ingram averaged 0.2 points more than David Njoku last year. There's just, to me, give me Njoku over Ingram. Just the fact that I can get him a round and a half later, I can, that's significant enough for me. He's, like you said, he's in that group of guys where he's a step above those 50 catch guys. He's, like I said, it's what he had last year, but in 14 games, he's probably more like a 70 catch, 800 yard potential guy. So I just think there's a little more potential with him than some of these other guys, like a Greg Dulcich, Cole Kmet. I think there's potential because we just talked about it. All right, there's Amari Cooper. We know what Amari Cooper's going to do. And then it's some question marks, right? With Elijah Moore, what is Peoples-Jones? Cedric Tillman's a rookie. David Bell, we don't know. So it's Amari Cooper, we know, and then we don't know anything. Could Njoku be the second best target on this team? Maybe. It's possible. It's not out of the realm. There's a world, if you run a simulation 100 times, there's a few worlds out there where David Njoku is the second target getter on this team because Elijah Moore is just not good. Yeah, it doesn't live up to it. So for that, I like it. And if I don't get Kelce or Mark Andrews, this is where I like to take tight ends in this, 10th, 11th, 12th round. And being able to wait and get a guy like David Njoku, I'm super happy with that because I think he's going to give you between 8 and 9 points, and he's just going to, he's going to be one of those just tight ends that if he plays all year, he's going to finish as a top 7 tight end. So anything else on the tight end? I mean, Harrison Bryant's still there, but
yeah, not really. Not much to say about him. He's been there 3 or 4 years, so just a second guy.
Second guy, he's probably a pretty good blocker and flashes here and there, but yeah, he's not enough to talk about. So Cleveland Browns, Dad, are you saying third in the division behind the Ravens and the Bengals?
Yeah, but they should, I mean, they could be third in the division, but Bengals and the Ravens, obviously, or they could be second or first in the division.
Yeah.
But
They could be any. They could be last. They could be first.
They should be. They could very well be a playoff team. So we've seen 3 teams come out of a division as playoff teams. So this could be one of them.
Yep. Like we said, they could be last. They could be first. I wouldn't be shocked. Maybe a little shocked if they win the division outright and like Burrow and Lamar Jackson stay healthy and stuff. But at the same time, I'm not going to be that shocked because we mentioned it. They have one of the better offensive lines. They have a quarterback who was a top 5 quarterback a couple years ago before, he went through all this stuff. They have a really good, what looks like a pretty good supporting cast around him with a top 5 running back, a solid, reliable receiver in Cooper. Elijah Moore and Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, are a nice 2-3 receivers. One of the better, maybe a top 10 tight end in the league. The defense is not bad. They have one of the best pass rushers, like you mentioned. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like with Cleveland. So it wouldn't shock me at all if they win it. So, I think we're going to finish up there. We are going to continue. You'll be seeing, I guess, in the YouTube world tomorrow, technically, you'll be seeing the next team, which is the Dallas Cowboys. So we're on to the Dallas Cowboys next. As always, if you could like the video and subscribe, that is wonderful. We'll be here all fantasy season. And we'll catch you guys next time.